It started with a message, a simple notification, a familiar chime from a phone, the kind that anyone might hear 100 times a day. 15-year-old Kayleigh Haywood picked up her phone, glanced at the screen, and saw a new message request. A man she had never met before wanted to talk. She hesitated for only a second before tapping to open it. It was friendly, harmless, even. He introduced himself as Luke. He was older, but that didn't seem strange. Older guys sometimes talked to younger girls online. It happened all the time. He wasn't rude. He wasn't creepy. He made her laugh. And before long, the messages kept coming. At first, it was just a few, then dozens, then hundreds. He complimented her. He told her she was different from other girls. Special. He listened when she talked about her dreams, her worries, the little things that upset her. He always had the right words. He always seemed to understand. 2 weeks. That was all it took. In just 14 days, Luke Harlow sent Kayleigh 2,643 messages, and every single one pulled her in closer. Every word chipped away at the little voice in the back of her mind that might have told her to stop, to be careful, to turn back before it was too late. Because this was no ordinary conversation. This wasn't an innocent chat between two strangers on the internet. This was a trap, and Kayleigh was walking straight into it. She didn't know it yet, but she was already in danger. And the moment she agreed to meet him in person, her fate was sealed. Luke, on the other hand, wasn't alone. There was someone else, someone even worse. And when Kayleigh stepped into that house on the evening of November 13th, 2015, she was stepping into the last night of her life. If you're watching this, thank you for being here. If you appreciate deep, well-researched true crime stories, make sure to hit the like button. It helps more people discover this case. And if you're new, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a story like this. Kayleigh was a smart girl. She was kind. She was funny. She had a family who loved her. A life ahead of her. If someone had told her that night that she wouldn't be going home again, she wouldn't have believed it. Because Luke had promised her something different. He had promised an evening of fun. A few drinks. Maybe a movie. But what she got was fear. Terror. A nightmare that no one should ever have to endure. By the time she realized the truth, it was too late. The doors were closed. The windows shut. And outside, in the darkness, someone was waiting. Someone who had already decided what was going to happen next. Because Luke Harlow was never the real danger. He was only the bait. The real monster was just next door. Have you ever received a message from a stranger online? Did you respond? Share your experience in the comment section. Kayleigh Haywood was born on June 1st, 2000. She was the eldest daughter of Stephanie and Martin Haywood, a hard-working couple from Maysham, a quiet village in Leicestershire, England. The Haywoods were a close-knit family, the kind that always looked out for one another. Kayleigh wasn't just a daughter, she was a big sister too. She had 2 younger brothers who adored her. She would help them with their homework, tease them like any older sibling would, and make them laugh when they were upset. She was the kind of sister who could be both annoying and protective at the same time. Her parents described her as full of life. She had a bright smile, an infectious laugh, and a way of lighting up any room she walked into. She was kind, thoughtful, and always wanted to make others happy. At school, she was well-liked. She had a strong group of friends, the kind of friendships that were built on whispered secrets, shared snacks, and endless conversations about music, crushes, and what the future might hold. She had dreams, big ones. She wanted to do something meaningful with her life. She wanted to travel, to see the world beyond her little town. She was just 15 years old. She still had so much growing up to do. So many birthdays to celebrate. So many moments to look forward to. Her parents had no idea that November 13th, 2015, would be the last day they'd ever see their daughter alive. That night, when she told them she was going to stay at a friend's house, they didn't think twice. Kayleigh was a good girl. She never caused trouble. She had never given them a reason to worry. But that night, she wasn't going to a friend's house. She was walking straight into the hands of a predator. And the people who loved her the most, her parents, her brothers, her friends, would never get the chance to say goodbye. Kayleigh was just like any other teenager. She went to school. She talked about her favorite music, her favorite movies. She made silly jokes. She stayed up late texting her friends. She had moments of confidence, moments of doubt. Some days she felt on top of the world. Other days, she just wanted to be understood. And then, as she met him, it wasn't in person. It wasn't at school, or at a party, or on the street. It happened in a place where most people feel safe. Behind a screen, with a single message. Luke Harlow, 27 years old, more than a decade older than her. At first glance, he seemed ordinary. He wasn't a stranger lurking in the dark. He wasn't hiding in the shadows. He was out in the open, where anyone could see him. His Facebook profile was filled with pictures, normal-looking pictures, smiling, laughing. Nothing about him seemed threatening. But that's how predators work. They don't look like monsters. They look like friends. He wasn't careless. He knew exactly what he was doing. He took his time. He didn't push too hard. He didn't say anything that would scare her off. He played the long game. The first message was just an introduction. A casual hey, a friendly conversation, a few compliments here and there, just enough to make her feel noticed. Then he asked questions. Lots of them. How was your day? What do you like to do for fun? What's bothering you? He made her feel special, like she could tell him anything, like he was someone who cared. And little by little, the messages increased. 10 a day, then 50, then 100, then 2,643 messages in just 2 weeks. Every single one of them designed to pull her in. He told her things she wanted to hear. He told her she was beautiful, that she was different from the others, that she was mature for her age, that she understood him in a way that no one else did. And she believed him, because she was 15, because she wanted to believe that someone out there truly saw her, because he was good at this. He had done it before, and he knew exactly how to make her feel safe. But she wasn't safe. She was being hunted, and every message was another step closer to the trap. Then, the invitation. Come over, he said. Just for a little while. A movie. Some drinks. Nothing dangerous. Nothing serious. Just a night to hang out. Kayleigh hesitated. She wasn't stupid. She knew meeting people from the internet could be risky. But Luke wasn't just some random guy anymore. She felt like she knew him. She trusted him. And so, she made the decision. The decision that would change everything. She told him yes. She told him she would come. On November 13th, 2015. It was a Friday night. The streets of Ibstock were quiet, the way small towns usually are. Houses were warm, filled with families settling in for the weekend. Some were watching TV. Others were getting ready for bed. And then, there was Kayleigh. She wasn't at home. She wasn't with her family. She was stepping off a bus, walking down a street she had never been on before. She had told her parents she was staying at a friend's house. That wasn't true. She was on her way to Luke Harlow's house. A house she had never seen in real life. A house she would never leave. Luke had been waiting for this moment. 2 weeks of careful planning. 2 weeks of messages. 2 weeks of pulling her in. And now, she was finally here. When she knocked on the door, it opened almost instantly, like he had been standing right behind it, just waiting. She stepped inside. The door closed behind her. For a moment, everything felt normal. What would you have done if you were Kayleigh's friend and knew she was meeting an older man? Share your thoughts in the comment section. Luke was friendly. He smiled. He made her laugh. He told her to make herself comfortable. And then, he brought out the drinks. He didn't ask if she wanted any. He didn't give her a choice. A bottle was placed in her hands. Here, drink this, he said. She hesitated. She wasn't a heavy drinker. She was 15. She had sipped alcohol before, but never like this. Never so much, so fast. But Luke made it seem fun. He poured more. He laughed when she coughed. Don't worry, you'll get used to it, he said. The more she drank, the more her body felt heavy. Her head spun. Her limbs slowed. Her judgment blurred. And that was exactly what he wanted. Because a sober Kayleigh might have left. A sober Kayleigh might have realized something wasn't right. But this wasn't a sober Kayleigh. This was a girl slipping under. A girl who could no longer fight back. A girl who was no longer in control. And Luke Harlow wasn't alone. Somewhere in that house, a phone buzzed. A message was sent in 5 words. I have a bird here. If you could go back in time and stop just one message from being sent, which one would it be? Would it be the very first message? Would it be the one where Luke asked her to come over? Or would it be the 5 words that sealed her fate? I have a bird here. If just one message had been erased, would Kayleigh still be alive today? Share your thoughts in the comment section. To anyone else, those messages wouldn't have meant much. Just a casual text between neighbors. But to the man on the other end of that message, it meant something very different. Because Luke wasn't talking about a bird. He was talking about a girl. A girl who had no idea she was being watched. A girl who had no idea that the moment she stepped inside that house, she had already been chosen. A girl who had no idea that someone else was coming. Someone worse. His name was Stephen Beedman. And he was about to walk through that door. The house was silent. Kayleigh was still awake, but barely. The alcohol had taken its toll. Her thoughts were foggy, her limbs heavy. Her head lolled slightly as she sat on the couch. Somewhere in the back of her mind, she knew something wasn't right. Then the knock came. A sharp, deliberate knock. Luke smirked as he stood up. He didn't seem surprised. He didn't even glance at Kayleigh before heading for the door. She tried to focus. The room spun. The door creaked open. And then he stepped inside. Stephen Beedman, 29 years old. A man Kayleigh had never seen before. Never spoken to. Never even heard of. Yet here he was. She tried to straighten up, try to understand what was happening. Luke and Stephen exchanged a glance. A silent understanding. Kayleigh wasn't a guest in this house anymore. She was a prey. The moment Beedman moved toward her, she knew. This wasn't fun anymore. This wasn't safe. Something was very, very wrong. She tried to stand up, but her legs were weak. The room tilted. Luke chuckled. Beedman didn't. His expression was empty. Cold. She mumbled something. Maybe she was asking to leave. Maybe she was asking who he was. But before she could make sense of the words in her own head, he grabbed her. A strong grip. Rough hands. Fear shot through her. She tried to fight, but her body wouldn't respond the way she needed it to. The alcohol had dulled her senses, but not her terror. The moment his hands were on her, she realized something. This was never about Luke. Luke was just the bait. The real danger had been waiting in the shadows all along. And now he had her. What happened next was a nightmare beyond imagination. Beedman dragged Kayleigh into another room. The walls were thin. No one heard her scream. Or maybe they did. Maybe Luke heard every sound. Maybe he just didn't care. Because he didn't stop it. Not when Beedman overpowered her. Not when she begged. Not when she fought. Even in her weakened state. Kayleigh was only 15. But she was strong. She fought. She clawed. She refused to give up. But Beedman was bigger. Stronger. And he was a man who had already made up his mind. By the time it was over, Kayleigh wasn't just intoxicated. She was terrified. And she knew one thing for certain. She had to get out. Kayleigh's heartbeat pounded in her ears. Her hands trembled as she reached for the door. She didn't care if she was drunk. She didn't care if she had to run barefoot in the night. She just needed to get out. She staggered forward, but before she could reach the door, Beedman grabbed her. A hand in her hair. A yank backward. She screamed. This time, she didn't care how loud she was. Someone had to hear her. Someone had to help. But no help came. The next thing she felt was the cold air as she was dragged outside. The stars were out. The wind had picked up. Somewhere, in the distance, a dog barked. But here, in the darkness behind Luke Harlow's house, no one could see. No one could hear. Kayleigh fought harder now. She thrashed, kicked, twisted. Everything in her was screaming to survive. But Beedman had made his decision. He wasn't going to let her leave. He picked up a brick. A solid, heavy brick from the ground. Kayleigh gasped. She tried to run. The first blow landed. Pain exploded through her skull. Her legs buckled. She collapsed. The second blow. Then the third. Then a fourth. Then silence fell. Kayleigh Haywood was gone. 15 years old. Her life stolen in an instant. And her killers? They didn't feel an ounce of remorse. Because while her body lay there, lifeless, they simply walked away. Kayleigh Haywood had been missing for 5 days. For her parents, each hour without her felt like an eternity. They called her phone, sent messages, knocked on friends' doors. But there was no answer. No one had seen her. And deep down, her parents felt it. Something was wrong. Then, on November 18, 2015, search teams made a grim discovery. Near a lakeside, hidden in the undergrowth, was Kayleigh's body. Her parents' worst fears had come true. She had been murdered, brutally, senselessly, and the hunt for her killers was about to begin. On November 20th, 2015, it didn't take long for police to trace her last known movements. One name kept appearing. Luke Harlow, the 27-year-old man who had been messaging her, the man who had lured her to his house. When officers knocked on his door, he didn't run. He didn't even try to deny knowing Kayleigh. But there was one thing he wouldn't say. What happened that night? Then another name surfaced. Stephen Beedman, the neighbor. The man Kayleigh had never even met, until it was too late. When police arrived at Beedman's house, he barely put up a fight. He was arrested on the spot, charged with rape and murder. Luke Harlow was charged with grooming and sexual activity with a minor. Kayleigh's family didn't get to bring their daughter home, but at the very least, they would get justice. Or so they hoped. In April 2016, Stephen Beedman sat in a courtroom and listened as the charges were read out. Murder, rape, and then, without hesitation, he pleaded guilty. There was no trial, no long battle in court, because the truth was simple. He had done it, and he knew there was no escaping it. But Luke Harlow? He didn't confess so easily. He admitted to grooming Kayleigh. He admitted to sexual activity with her. But he denied falsely imprisoning her. And so, he went to trial. A jury would decide his fate. And when they did, they found him guilty. The courtroom was silent as the sentences were read. Stephen Beedman was sentenced to life in prison, a minimum of 35 years before parole. That meant he would be behind bars until at least 2050. For Kayleigh's family, it was some relief, but it would never bring her back. And then, there was Luke Harlow, the man who had started it all, the man who had spent weeks gaining Kayleigh's trust. 12 years in prison. Only 12 years. The man who had groomed multiple underage girls would be walking free before he even turned 40. And when the court revealed the final, shocking detail, the horror of this case deepened even further. Kayleigh wasn't the first. And she wasn't the only one, because Harlow had groomed at least 2 other girls, 13 and 15 years old. They thought he was their boyfriend. They believed his lies. He had been manipulating them the same way he manipulated Kayleigh. And who knows how many more there could have been. If Kayleigh hadn't walked through his door that night. Her case was tragic, but it was also a warning. A warning to every parent, every teenager. Not every predator hides in the shadows. Some of them, they smile at you through a screen. Stephen Beedman sat in a prison cell for nearly 6 years. He wasn't feared. He wasn't respected. He was hated. Even among criminals, there are lines you don't cross. And what he did to Kayleigh, that put a target on his back. By April 2021, the years had taken their toll. The torment from other inmates, the isolation, the weight of what he had done, it all became too much. One morning, prison guards found him dead in his cell. He had taken his own life. There were no tears for him, no mourning. The world had moved on without him, just as it should. But for Kayleigh's family, the pain never faded. No sentence, no punishment, not even the death of her killer, could bring her back. But if there was any hope to be found in her story, it was in the lesson it left behind. Leicestershire police knew that Kayleigh's story couldn't be forgotten. They took action, creating a short film titled Kayleigh's Love Story. It wasn't just another documentary. It was a warning. A message for every teenager, every parent, every person who ever thought, that could never happen to me. The film was shown in schools across the country. It was raw, emotional, and terrifyingly real. It showed how one innocent conversation online could lead to a nightmare beyond imagination. And it begged the question, how many other Kayleighs are out there? Right now, as we speak, how many teenagers are chatting with someone they believe is a friend? How many think they've found love, when in reality, they're being hunted? Kayleigh's story wasn't just a tragedy. It was a warning that came too late for her. But maybe, just maybe, in telling it, another life could be saved. If you found this video informative, share it. Awareness saves lives. Somewhere out there, another teenager might be walking down the same dangerous path. One share could make a difference. Let's keep these stories alive, not just to remember the victims, but to protect others from the same fate. Like, comment, and subscribe for more in-depth true crime cases. And remember, stay safe online. You never know who's really on the other side of the screen.